So Rachel, kick it off.
All right. So first, I want to thank you all for joining us today for our Power of Poetry featuring Howie Faerstein. He's the author of the chapbooks Play a Song on the Drums, he said, and Out of Order, and 2 full-length collections, Dreaming of the Rain in Brooklyn and Goot Gootst and Other Poems. I'm sorry, I probably mispronounced that. Both published by Press 53. Also, a new manuscript, Stay, will be published by Human Error Publishing in the coming months. His poetry and reviews can be found in numerous journals, including Great River Review, Nimrod, Cutthroat, Off the Coast, Rattle, Upstreet, Banyan Review, 9 Mile, and online in Verse Daily, Nix's Mate, On the Seawall, Hole in the Head Review, Peacock Journal, and Connotation. Howie also facilitates a weekly poetry discussion group through Northampton's Forbes Library, and winner of the Nova 2022 Poetry Prize and a 5-time Pushcart Prize nominee. He's co-poetry editor of Cutthroat, volunteers as a mentor at the Center for New Americans, and lives in Florence, Mass. So thank you very much for being with us today, Howie.
Thank you.
Rachel, thank you very much. Howie, thank you for coming back for another season. Now it's been a great one so far to just explore the angles around inquiry, and we've had some very interesting discussions. So what does inquiry mean to you?
Well, I think poetry itself is inquiry. I think we're always asking questions, elemental questions, profound questions. And the answers are poetic, they're funny, they're tragic. They comprise a good volume, a good part of the things that I write. And of course, there are very few answers that you can be sure of, if any. So you struggle with them, and you try to get something on paper.
And does the inquiry part just come naturally, or are you trying to make sure that there's a good amount of inquiry in your work?
Oh, I don't think I try. It just happens. I notice going over work like the last couple of days, looking for things that involve questions. I notice a lot of poems that end with questions, and a couple of poems that begin with questions. It's just a natural process, I think.
Yeah, I was trying to, I think ending with a question, for me has more impact, because then it's like, I got the question, I'm falling off a cliff. There's no recourse. I've got to embrace it and figure out where I'm going to land.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning, maybe the poem answers or provides some, tries to, yeah. So what would be a poem you'd like to share that has one of your compelling questions?
Well, I'll read a poem first from way back that ends in a couple of questions. It's from Dreaming of the Rain, the first book. It's called Russian Wood, and it has an epigraph from Tolstoy's Anna Karenina, a very famous epigraph. All happy families are like one another. Each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Russian Wood. So much isn't written because it's almost winter, bare trees in the foreground, scrape of light, slant of wind. And so when reading the opening of Anna Karenina to my love, beautiful with her dog and a book in bed, I understand there is nothing of logic the Tolstoys set up, only a way in for the rest. Just like last week at the Silverbrook Cafe, a band playing the Tennessee Waltz at our entrance, Ramadan and Hanukkah falling together, full turnip moon backlighting the bar, folks tripping across the lath of the dance floor, not involved in a search for sequence or God. Right up till this moment of composition, like a director forced by rain to shoot the last shot first, the first shot last, I have been someone else, never thinking. Blue and yellow flowers blackened, yard white, advent upon us. Anna suspended beneath the wheels of a train, a porter on the platform selling kvass. How can birds be on the road, flashing tail white against standing dead trees? How can a junco be small and in flight, but not leaves breathing? How can there not be tenderness?
Very nice. How can they not be tenderness? I don't know. I think I just have to read the front page of the New York Times and I got that answer.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah.
Day after day, yeah.
That's so do you kind of weave some books you like into your poetry? I like that part of it.
Oh, I don't know if I do that all the time. Once in a while, I guess I'll just be inspired maybe by another book or by a particular writer, an author, a poet. Right now, I'm trying to work a poem about Gerald Stern, who passed very short time ago. And I was thinking of his poem, The Dog, because I saw a dead raccoon in the middle of my street the other day. And I think it was about the same time that Jerry had died. Anyway, I'm working on that one. I'm not ready to read that, but
Okay. All right. The dead raccoon is the sign of we have no idea what, but yeah. So Howie, tell us a little bit about your writing process. And what I mean by that is, do you do it every day? Do you do it when it kind of you feel it, or just give us a little background on how the creative side.
well, I think before COVID, it was a process of just about every day, writing in the journal, scribbling things down on paper, looking at them, trying to get something. But since COVID, it's been harder. And maybe it has something to do with getting older also, I don't know. So the process is, in spurts now. If I grab something out of the air, out of the paper, out of a conversation and write it down, I keep a journal.
Yeah.
So I look at the journal and try to work things out that way. But it spurts, like I said. It's been more of a struggle lately. I'm sad to say that, but
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
well, like I said, I'm not really sure. It's happened over the last while since the pandemic, and I don't know why. I don't like it. I'll tell you that. I'm not happy about it, but I keep working at it.
Yeah, I think probably, this is, I don't know, our 85th show or something. I think probably a third were more productive during the last couple of years. A third were the same, and a third were, not finding I guess the fertile ground to really write the way they used to. So
Mhm.
yeah, no, it's no interesting. So is there another poem you could read for us?
Oh, there's plenty of poems. Yes. Um, a recent poem, which I think is perfect for this kind of inquiry that you're asking. It's called Questions for This Moment. It's a long poem with lots of sentences. Okay, so let me jump in. Questions for this moment. Is it true you can never die in a dream? Depending on your answer, could you take comfort in an afternoon snooze or not? Masked, or unmasked? And if you remembered all your dreams, would they fortify you? After the inundation, how long before the great oak sprouted? Do the dead occupy our breath? What are they doing this very minute? When you witnessed your aunt raped, where were you standing, Mom? Were you 8 years of age or 10? What did you do afterwards? How is it that the flowering almond bloom, so glorious, only lasts a week? And why didn't the fox sparrow visit this spring? Can you touch your toes? Wouldn't God design the firefly to devour a body other than her suitor? Do frogs dream and spiders? When I changed my life, transformed all that I'd been, did it make a difference? What earthly good is regret? Do you think Putin harbors any regrets? Is that the dumbest question you've ever heard? Could the trauma of her witness be the reason for mother's gift to us, her children? Do you believe there's more hate in our world than ever before? If yes, give your reasons. If no, what's your proof? Would there be room for anything else if I recalled all my dreams? Now that I'm no longer sure who's alive and who isn't, now that I'm beginning to forget most things, will I remember what I was going to say next? Will I remember my name? Is sleep preparation for death, or is that the job of art? I've heard that intimacy director is a new job description. Are they serious? Do you ever feel as brainless as a sponge? And is it a fact that in dreams you can never lie? Depending on your response, would you be more confident being truthful in waking life or not? Fewer than 350 right whales remain. Is there any hope? Dead children of Zambia, in what waste ground are they buried? Dead citizens of Ukraine, how many mass graves in Mariupol rubble, in Bucha? Dead Black folks of Buffalo, did they wonder why they were targeted? Slaughtered 10-year-olds in a Texas schoolroom. Is there any hope? When did you last cry? Sad, Mom, gone so long now.
Hmm.
So there's a bunch of questions.
Yeah, I think I think the one that really hit me was, I'm not sure who's alive or who's dead. I don't know if that's the right words that you used.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And does that mean that no, you don't have to give me the meaning. No, I'm just telling you, I felt like, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And at night, I do have I feel like there's a movie reel going on in my head. If I ever put them together, it'd probably be, what do you call those B movies that are horror movies that are not horror, but, just, it's like, just, I don't know, a lot of nighttime drama.
Yeah.
So when did you write that last poem?
Oh, I think maybe July, August.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mariupol, Bucha, that was in the news then.
Yeah.
And I had just finished reading a book about the children of Zambia, amazing book. And so that was all around July, I think.
It was good. You covered a lot of ground there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Current events test. Yeah. So do you have another one you'd like to share?
I have many. I have
Yeah, I mean,
100,000.
it's just, I think it's just, fascinating to listen to them.
Yeah. So a short poem that ends with a question. It's from Good Boots and Other Poems, which was the second book. It's just a very short one. It's called Standing on the Front Steps. The street I live on is North Farms Road. Standing on the front steps, twilight cars along North Farms Road, travelers I'll never know speeding home from work. I'm shocked I'm still conscious inside my head after 69 years. watching cars vanish, day lapse to night, night setting its pace toward day. Who would fault the fisherman standing in the brook, patiently casting?
Very nice. Very nice. Let's do this because you've read a few. Let's have a little time for the audience if they have to ask you some questions or provide some comments. Does anybody have a question or a comment they'd like to share? I don't know. It looks pretty quiet out there. Oh, wait, Michael, do you have, yeah, you got to unmute, Michael.
Unmute, Michael.
Yeah,
Michael,
unmute.
unmute. You're on.
Yeah,
There.
there you go.
Now I've forgotten the question, but I do have, I want to go back to the questions poems, which I think fluctuated so interestingly from really profound to close to absurd. And I was thinking particularly of the Director of Intimacy and the way in which Howie captured the absurdity of something that somebody takes very seriously. So I think there's a really interesting balance, and this is true of all of his poetry, I think, between the way people receive ideas, offer ideas, and counteract ideas. But I was thinking of that particularly when the series of dream questions, which I think in one way or another, many of us have asked, and the thing that he has captured with the Director of Intimacy and some of the other ideas about the fantastic quality of real life outside of dreams. And I just thought that was a neat poem.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Anybody else? Joan or Alan or Joanne?
Joanne had to leave, I think.
Yeah, oh, did she? Yeah, I wasn't sure when she had to leave, so. All right.
I would just love to hear more poems.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So Howie, go ahead. Read us another great work of yours.
Oh, I don't know about the great work, but this is a very recent poem. Joan has heard it already. It's called Marriage Ceremony with Cross-Eyed Justice of the Peace.
Oh boy.
No questions in this one. The waiting room in National City's Navy recruiting hall with its framed photos of young sailors, its broken bench where we kissed beneath planked green walls, its side room for ritual unions where we wed, nondescript space where our party gathered to have and to hold. An unexpected move decided upon that morning. Psychopathic friend, Bongo Billy, my best man, ex-wife's maid of honor, a woman we didn't know, and the cross-eyed judge reciting the vows till death do us part. Each time my wife looked at him, she burst into hysterics. Red cliff beyond our rental, an hourglass spilling its soul into the Pacific, a windbreak of sycamore touching San Diego's sky. We've only just begun in the Billboard Top 100, our wedding song, Moon Dance.
Yeah, nice. Very nice.
This one is a recent poem from the summer also. It's dedicated to a guy named Karim Wasfi, who's a cellist, former direct conductor of the Iraqi National Symphony. He came to Northampton. So this is called The Cellist of Northampton. In our new golden age of mass graves, with tombstone engravers struggling to keep up with demand, a cellist from Egypt conductor of the Iraqi National Symphony, known for wielding his instrument on a scorched stage of mutilated ground, sat down in our New England city for an impromptu concert, and we gathered in the common space of our local emporium by artisanal chocolatiers and Tony clothing shops. Think the fall of the Berlin Wall, Rostropovich performing Bach's cello saraband at Checkpoint Charlie. And here, Wasfi bowing horsehair over 4 strings in a burst of vibrato, a crescendo of song, his music a tonic for madness. Mesmerized by the tonal serenity, a woman began to sing as a soft rain fell on Main Street, and I wondered, why here? Why a dirge for patients slaughtered in makeshift clinics? Why a simmering requiem for the dead in mayhem's aftermath? Why Baghdad mourning melancholy as he improvised against fear this serenade for peace? Since no cluster bombs strafe our streets, no drone assassinations or bloody wreckage of indiscriminate terror, but surely one can detect the smell of death. A 9-year-old identified by a coroner by the heart she painted on her high-top sneakers, a child surviving in her classroom only by covering herself in her slaughtered schoolmates' blood. Reader, you'd be forgiven your disbelief, though not by her. The maestro is welcome, even here in our American city of peaceful neighborhoods.
Very powerful, very powerful. So Howie, before you read another poem, just share with us about your weekly poetry program at the Northampton Library.
Oh, I'd love to, yes. Well, it's an institution. It's been going on for, I think, about 20 years at the Forbes Library, downtown Northampton, where people would gather once a week and somebody would lead the group, and we'd take a particular poet and look at a packet of his or her work. And the library usually provided a facilitator. But this year, or last year, I guess they decided they weren't going to do that anymore. But I wanted to keep the thing going because I love it so much. And so I've been running it for the last, I don't know, year and a half. Right, Betsy? And we take a poet. Every week I send out the work. This past week we did Sylvia Plath. We've done Philip Levine. We did Jerry Stern. We've done so many poets, and we continue to do it, except for this week, Thanksgiving.
And then how many people show up in person?
When we did it in person, sometimes it'd be 10, 15 people.
Oh.
But with COVID, it went to Zoom. And I think lately we're happy if we have 6 or 7 people.
Yeah.
And it's a group, usually the same people lately, kind of a family, poetry family. I'm also in a fiction group that Michael is part of. That meets once a month.
That meets at the library also?
No, that meets, used to meet in the Amherst bookstore. Now we do that Zoom also.
We are trying to support the Amherst bookstore and get people to walk in, but same thing has happened to our fiction group that Howie talked about at the Forbes. Now we have 6 to 7 or 8 people reading a short work of fiction every month.
Nice.
As a member of the poetry group, I'd like to say it's wonderful, and that to me the being on Zoom is maybe the smaller group, but it's developed a kind of intimacy of discussion that I didn't find usually happened in the big group where you often couldn't see around your neighbors and stuff. But anyway, it's a wonderful group. I'd like to make a pitch for it.
No, it's great. We're always thinking about, how do we engage people differently? So no, I like that. I really like that idea to have a group of people dive into one poet and have a nice, especially as a family that keeps going week after week or most weeks. That's really nice. Very nice. And if I live closer, I'd be going, but I think I'm about, I don't know.
You're up in Maine now, so
Yeah, right by Brunswick, right by
That's a-
Brunswick.
that's a long trip.
Yeah, but Wendy, I think the library director still lives in Northampton or maybe East Hampton. So, no, I went to UMass and no, way back in the Fred Flintstone era in the early 70s. So, so Howie, continue with some of your poems, please.
Okay. This is another recent one that still needs some work, but it's called On the Bridge of Flowers. There's a bridge of flowers in Shelburne Falls, where I think Joan used to live. On the bridge of flowers grows a daylily named Lola Montez. Not a surprise seeing a flower in her honor. As Lady Day pinned a gardenia to her hair, Lola wore a camellia. I stood by her grave in Greenwood Cemetery, thinking how Eliza Gilbert, country girl from County Sligo, beat sadness, eloped at 16 with her mother's lover. There's also a gladiolus named for her, and in California, Mount Lola plus 2 lakes. Countess to this notoriously bad poet, King Ludwig I of Bavaria, called courtesan, mistress, spider dancer, harlot. Married and divorced 3 times, her lover shot and killed in a duel. She frequented George Sand's salon, had a dalliance with Franz Liszt, and it was said another with Dumas. Did she run naked through the streets of Connacht, stick flowers in an old man's wig during church services, attack a newspaper editor brandishing a whip after a nasty review, walk her pet grizzly bear, a present from Tsar Nicholas? Was her whole life a rumor? Before dying at 39 from syphilis, penniless in Brooklyn, she presented a series of moral lectures and performed rescue work for struggling women. On an obsolete trolley bridge bedecked with flowers, wisteria, datura, and blazing stars, I found a daylily named Lola Montez.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic.
And I got another one to read, if that's okay. It's a
Yeah,
long.
absolutely. No, absolutely. You're go
That's what I'm
go full
supposed to,
steam ahead. Yeah.
that's what I'm supposed to be doing, right? So
Yeah, do it. Yeah.
this is another recent poem, and it's fairly long. If you see it, you can't really see it on paper, but there's a lot of white space between the phrases. It's called Once This Poem. Once this poem meant all things, as a grandfather of boys, father to women, as gardens in drought, as waxwings in snow, by the wild sarsaparilla trail, past the synagogue of tailors, past the synagogue of furriers, in this universe where everything moves away from everything else. I don't know why, so young, stumbling from love to loss and back again, stumble bum. Now it could mean I'm older. It could mean it's getting hotter. I don't know yet, may never know. It's a poem in the making, certainly not one meaning all things. Though when it began, I thought I was certain. This poem rooted where rooting is difficult, a quaking bog in Massachusetts where carnivorous bladderwort, sundew, and pitcher plant share life, where fireflies begin flashing when bats end their twilight run. Months will fly by, a freeze will set in. Soon after, it's hot again. Colossal white pines, a touchstone. Black-eared kites in India tumble from the heavens, banyan branches sway in heat in the still of the night, whether I think it or not. What I was, I am. This poem means caterpillars that devour their host, their upside down banded colors deepening to forest green, a vulture dodging traffic on the turnpike, risking all for carry-on. This poem rooted in a November hour sitting on the slip-covered couch with mom and dad watching Jack Ruby assassinate the president's assassin. And in a sweltering August air-conditioned bedroom, our child hours from birth as the criminal resigned a half-century ago. As Spirea follows Forsythia, as flowering almond follows Spirea, here the 15 glass panel door, the unrelenting windows, bookcase of the future, sacramental stovepipe, switchbacks of the past. As azalea follows witch hazel, as rhododendron follows lilac, shoes without feet, a floor to walk, as common crows strutting, as paper wasps building. I don't know why darkness always precedes light, or why light always succeeds darkness. In the end, what does the poem mean? What does the heart know?
Fantastic.
Can I ask a question, Howie?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
This is so fascinating listening because you're so attentive to meter and you're so attentive to so many devices that we talk about when we talk about poetry and we listen to poetry. But the one thing I was aware of that I didn't know until you held up that sheet of paper briefly was that we don't really get a sense of how you deal with the line versus the thought. Am I missing something important, say, in this last poem, which I found tremendous? But is the character of the line one of the things that you attend to also?
Yes, in particular in that poem.
Yeah.
I didn't read it with the spacing like it has on the page. I thought about it, but then I wanted to go through it. So I didn't give it the attention that it kind of asks for on the page, you know.
Would it be possible for you to read a little tiny chunk of it with the spacing so we can hear the contrast?
Well, yeah, I'll pick out.
Yeah, just one that works interestingly that way, where it makes a difference.
Well, just the opening stanza, if I can call it a stanza. Once this poem meant all things, as a grandfather of boys, father to women, as gardens in drought, as waxwings in snow, by the wild sarsaparilla trail, past the synagogue of tailors, past the synagogue of furriers, in this universe where everything moves away from everything else.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. So Howard, just let me ask you, how does the group or how do you pick the poet that you're going to dive into on a weekly basis?
It's become harder than it used to be. I mean, I think of a poet or somebody I know or I like or I've seen poems by online or in a book, and I try to find. Mostly now I'm getting lazy, so I don't copy the poems. I look for poems online, and hopefully I can find a bunch. And then I'll read 3 or 4 and 5 and say, well, no, this isn't going to work. It's not going to engender conversation.
Yeah.
So I'll drop that, and then I'll look for another one and another one, and then find something that, you know.
So what are some of the poets you would recommend that really engage conversation? I just find that interesting.
Oh, I don't know. Gosh. Betsy, can you help me?
Uh-oh. Wait, here's the big inquiry question.
Well, we did Jerry Stern. That certainly engendered conversation, and Jack Gilbert, and Sylvia Plath last week, and I'm drawing a blank for some
Well,
reason.
that's okay. That's okay. I just,
And I have a folder that's filled right now with probably about 40 different programs we've done already. And I don't
Nice.
want to go, I don't want to go there and lose the Zoom screen. So
yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. No, I've just, no, I just, no, I think it's, very thoughtful that you're putting in the energy and time to really sift through some poems and decide on those that might spark some conversation. So I think it's great. So more things to read?
yeah, sure. This is from the first book, Dreaming of the Rain. It's called Or Did I? Again, it's a poem that I guess has a couple of questions. It certainly ends with a question. Or did I? 5 years old when I tell my parents I'll marry and raise 20 children. This spring I'll plant witch hazel for its winter flower. People say I want too much, and I do. The big break, a kiss goodnight, putting the lie to the sixth extinction with a mountain lion asleep on the woodpile, black swifts dipping above a box canyon in Ouray. My husky swiveling her rump marks a leaf pile. A dozen turkeys scatterdash into a hemlock stand. Mother's sighs still sound. Father's laugh still rankles. After years of searching, I glimpsed a roadrunner, crested flash of lightning wheeling through dry leaves. Or did I? Wedged under a coruscated sky, I'm expecting moonlight, even as muslin clouds tent over steaming stars. One more blessing, like fatherhood, late love, like radiance after eclipse. If nothing is expected, the poem ends. More space on the page is all. But what if I were to say this morning when I woke, waxwings jeweled every tree? Would you believe me?
Mhm. Oh, great.
Let's see.
I think I have a question.
Yeah,
Yep.
man.
Yeah, I guess the question begins with a statement. It seems to me that when a question is asked, there's a tendency immediately, knee-jerkedly to seek about for a response, for an answer. It also seems to me that the question's answer, a question's answer is the question itself. And if it is not the only answer, it is a best answer. So here comes my question. What would you like to say to that? I could repeat it.
Yeah, repeat it.
Yeah, okay. So a question is its own answer. If not the only answer, certainly a best answer. And I could support that a little bit by referring to some of your poems, but I don't remember that you read, though I don't remember them well enough in a chapter and verse sense. But some of what you read didn't ask so much as just present. And the presentation constituted question and answer. Or so it seemed to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think I guess it's not possible. Well, for me, it's not possible to put the question down without following it with maybe not an answer, but another place where that question has taken me. And perhaps it'll be an answer, but most likely it won't. It'll just be the inquiry will just take me to a further place, another place of inquiry, and another place of inquiry, and maybe I don't know if I can answer it any better than that right now.
I can ask it slightly better.
Okay.
I think maybe one of the things I intend when I say the question is its own answer is that in asking the question, there is a sense that there is something there that is identified in terms of the question, and that is sufficient. And what you just said about one question leads to another equivalent or similar question, that would seem to support that notion.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Mhm.
At least at this moment it does.
At this moment, yeah.
Not sure about an hour from now, but
Yeah, amen to that.
Well, a question in poetry, oh, I'm sorry.
go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, a question in poetry can lead to another question, or it can define a territory where there's no answer. And it can be part of the job of the poet is to identify areas in either which there are no answers, or which the poet chooses not to answer, or where one question leads to another question. I mean, it seems to me when Keats talked about negative capability, he was identifying our ability to live without answers, but that doesn't mean to live without questions.
Uh-huh. That's wonderful.
Yeah, very nice.
I'm at a disadvantage because I don't have the text in front of me and I have trouble retaining what I've just heard, only auditorily. But my impression that I'm walking away from the poems I've heard is that they're not really, they're ostensibly questions, inquiries, but it's the poems are not questions that look for answers. Rather, they're questions that are like elements of tension that together with different pieces of the poem create this structure of tensions, ambiguities. So a question is like a constructional device almost, even though it obviously also has real meaning, literal meaning, but it's functioning as a constructive device, like a beam or something that's using gravity to pull you in a certain direction to create whatever it does create.
I think that's terrific.
Yeah, that was great. That was great. Yeah, I think
it is a
next.
structural part of the writing. Yes, no question.
Yeah.
There are people who I've read a couple of poems by other people that are totally made up of interrogative question, interrogative statements. And I guess that's maybe what influenced that earlier poem I read called Questions, which is just one question after another, not necessarily following one another. But I also tried to come back to some of them in the middle of the poem and the end of the poem.
No, but Betsy, I like your idea about questions as a constructional device where, I don't know, it's almost like they're sticks or logs in the road and you've got to jump around them. And at some point in time, they all collect themselves together and become an event you engage in because there's so many, they're out there and intersecting with you. Now it's very nice, very nice.
Also, if there's a big pot, if one of those is a pothole in the road and you fall and it hurts and then you get up and walk on, you remember that place. You've got a vivid impression of it. So there's that element in writing too.
Mm-hmm. It's another poem I read the first time I was with the Stockbridge Library. I wasn't going to read it. I hadn't put it on my list to read today, but I love reading this poem and I'm going to read it. It's called Bricolage. And it's in the Gagoots book. Because of a chiromancer's prophecy and the stippled surface of time, because I am slack-jawed, monogamous, a survivor of 5 o'clock fever, because I knowingly confess I take fiction on faith, not on account of or by reason why, not for the reason that, only because reality strikes us 150 frames per second, because the fuzzy pod of milkweed remains upright in the storm and fireflies cast the yard into a frenzied field of flight. There were so many tangles I stumbled through to get here, For instance, my love line that a Texarkana palm reader gently traced in 3 separate directions, because gnats whirl in a faint breeze as geese shoot for the lake, because cast-off elders live in their cars and box elder bugs copulate backwards as inchworms dangle then loop. There are 100 ways to arrive at the same place in this town, and still it's possible to get lost, which is true of many things, because there's a model penis in a jar filled with alcohol in a Mississippi courthouse, because the flag tacked to the door is painted in ignorance, because memory's a sinkhole opening at the back of one's throat, because what is remembered is surrendered and the pension's death benefit is irrevocable, because repetition is unavoidable and failure inconceivable, because war is continual and life ends so quickly. So there, instead of the question, you have the because as the device, the structural device, the anaphora, as the poets call it sometimes, the repeated phrase, the opening phrase. Yeah.
No, I felt like that one was just cascading line after line. You know, I felt like it was a musical presentation. I was waiting for the crescendo at the end.
So I could read another one, or
Yeah, read another one or two, and then we'll close it out for today.
okay, this one is called 9 minutes and 29 seconds. In the first 60 seconds, I kept watch on the towering sugar maple. I counted limbs growing from its trunk and limbs growing from those limbs. I tallied 10. Then there were all the side branches to add. Night air outside the open window was cool with a subtle breeze. In that second minute, twilight showed the contrasting buff and black of a bobolingb's head. I wondered how much bend was left in the bow, how it reached toward the risen moon, how it stretched beyond the roof. In the third minute, I saw palm-shaped leaves lengthening, aphids scaling veins. I wondered how much rot infested the bowl, if carpenter ants tunneled through the stems. There was a quickening in the fourth minute. Early May fireflies lit up the street, and the multi-lobed leaves began to breathe. The sound was deafening. In the fifth minute, a garter snake coiled around the tree's base, then slithered through a thicket of saplings. I saw it flick its forked, black-tipped red tongue. I saw it retracted. In the sixth minute, a sapsucker began its rhythmic drumming. Loosened bark dropped to the grass. Scolding house wrens rattled when a red-tailed shadow passed over. In the seventh minute, a spider was taken by a sparrow. Winds came up, and the maple's dense crown waved like corn stalks. Patches of blue sky slipped like ice through the night in the eighth minute. And then the ninth minute, when there were no longer any minutes, not a minute before or the second after, not the first spring migrant, not the last blooming aster. Suffocation, nothing o'clock. For 9 minutes and 29 seconds, we watched a man cuffed and pinned to the pavement, repeating over and over, "I can't breathe." We heard his call for his mama, the full weight of a cop on his neck, the man's breath extinguished.
Wow.
Woo. Yeah. Very, very powerful. I forgot about the timing for that George Floyd incident. Yeah.
And I guess I'll do one more from Gagoots. This one, I don't know if you should try to make any sense out of it, but just listen. It's called If an Okra Stalk. If for this year we begin at the end, if mornings rise with stars and night descends with dawn, if snow were leopard spotted, Titian gold, and grief redolent of desert rain, of fresh baked loaves, if monetized and otherized was struck from the lexicon, and we uttered two-syllable words as three, sparkling, say, or loverly, and things happen when they could not happen, like cinders from burning cane fields spidering your windshield. If bugs suck and insects chew, and they do, if the man who tumbled through the ceiling next time took the stairs, if I could ever erase the bloody javelina strapped to a van's roof in Socorro, if this year your face, each time I woke, faced me, if your face, if our bodies, if such light as whitens brown budded forsythia were not fleeting, if fire were tidal, and this kind of bird a breast, if above the ovary where the cholla flowers snapped off, if a clay pot, if an okra stalk, if the rail skulking in the Barrett Street swamp for once showed itself, if walking the mesa after sunfall, if snappers with saw-toothed tails, if the widow sitting with her dogs wonders why day is evening, Jupiter rising, and night is day, moonless. What broken glass, what a row of boats, what clamorous noise on solstice day.
So many images. Anybody have any final questions or comments before we head out?
Well, I'll just say, I think they're tremendous. And as I hear a lot of them together, I'm getting a real sense of Howie as a poet, because he has certain things that he likes to do. And he does them in different ways, so that you're never bored with his poems. But I get a feeling of the way he likes to build, and we talked about questions before, but he also likes what sometimes I call list poems, poems that add by accretion, and they're so powerful. So thank you, Howie.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
Hey, Jan Lamb, did you have a comment?
Trying to remember how you say the word paean.
Paean.
Yeah, something like that. I don't even know if we're spelling it right, but a hymn of praise I'm hearing in some of these poems, a hymn of praise. And not always about happy things either, but hymn of acknowledgement of the range of human emotion, not trying to deny or facilitate appreciation of any one emotion, but complexity. And that's refreshing that it's not biased. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, good. Howie, thank you for a very descriptive hour, and reading a lot of your work, and just sharing your creative process and your thinking. So
Well, thanks for inviting me, John. Thank you.
Oh, no, our pleasure.
Yes.
I also, just to let everyone know, if you want to be on our mailing list, for all you do is you get a Zoom invite. The list doesn't go anywhere. You're not going to get buy solar panels from us, but you'll get a note that says, here's last week's recording, Betsy. So you get last week's recording and you get this week's Zoom. So if that's something you'd like, just email me. The email is in the chat, and we'll get you on the list. And that's it for today. No, thanks for everyone coming. I think this is always, I call it my time of the week to recharge in the poetry wall, plug myself in. So it's always just I always leave with a big smile on my face, because I feel like I've just had this huge meal of poetry, and I'm full.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, very
Well,
good.
Night, everyone. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
happy
Howie.
Thanksgiving. Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.